Hey everybody, how are you doing? This is Kirsten here, and you're listening to A Better Way with Kirsten Kimura podcast. Or maybe you are watching this on YouTube. In this case, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Or if you are listening to this podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcast, you can there leave me a 5-star rating and a review. And no matter how you're listening to it or watching, you can always share these episodes with your friends and family. And I'm really, really grateful if you're able to take some time out of your day and do it. So today we're going to talk about anxiety, and this is a topic that came up from one of my listeners or one of the followers. And she responded after listening to the previous episode where I was talking about self compassion. So, two kinds of self compassion. And she said it really resonated with me, and I'm going through a lot of anxiety right now. And I think this tool, the self-compassion tool, will be really helpful for me. So I've been using it and I'm feeling a little bit better, but every now and then I'm still going through lots of anxiety and I don't know how to deal with this. So I definitely have had a history with this myself too. So that's why I wanted to share with you today some things that I have learned about anxiety and how to deal with it and what not to do, which actually ends up being something that a lot of people are doing. So I think the approach to feeling better and not experiencing anxiety in such a horrible way as it sometimes can be, the approach to feeling better is actually something different than what you might be, because a lot might be thinking, because a lot of times people think they just have to get rid of this anxiety, they have to push it away. But you're going to learn in today's episode that actually this may not be the best approach at all. But first, let's talk a little bit about what it is, right? So I think most of you have at some point experienced a little bit of anxiety. Now, anxiety is not the occasional worrisome thought or something that is bothering you occasionally, right? Anxiety is way deeper than that. This is this type of like ongoing, persistent feeling of like dread and um, jitteriness and nervousness, and it can really interrupt with your daily life. So you can't do the things that you want to do normally. You feel like on super high alert. You feel like you can't be still and get things done. You have this very jumpy mind, which makes it really difficult to concentrate on things. So these are really common signs that you may be dealing with anxiety. And like I said, it's not this like just like one or two worrisome thoughts. This is more like this ongoing thing. And you may also get physical sensations from it, right? And I think this is how actually a lot of people recognize anxiety. So you can feel like your heart is racing really fast and you don't even know why. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know. And it's very uncomfortable, right? Your heart is going super fast and kind of strong, right? You can hear your own heartbeat. And when you feel your pulse, it's very, very high. You may have shaky hands, right? It's like this internal jittery feeling, and sometimes it can come out even like when you look at your hands, they're actually shaking. In addition to you internally feeling like everything is shaking inside, you may have muscle tension. So if you're not able to relax, and you can check by the way right now how you're feeling. Are you feeling really tight? Are you lifting your shoulders to your ears? Are you squeezing your hands like this? Are you doing any of this? Because this is also a common way how we are experiencing anxiety. We're just so tight and tense. So if you have a lot of muscle tension, or even like when you go get a massage and the massage the therapist tells you that, oh my God, you were so tight and tense. So it can also be, of course, obviously it can be if you work out a lot too and don't necessarily recover well, but also if you are very anxious, that can be one of the signs. If you have a lot of racing thoughts, which is something that I have experienced so much. So sometimes it's like there's so many thoughts. It feels like I want to step off from this roller coaster, but you feel like you just can't. They're just occupying your entire mind. So many racing thoughts. Some people have sweating. Most people who have anxiety, who experience anxiety, feel very restless, right? It's almost like impossible for them to sit still and get grounded. They feel like they are jumping around and they have to move all the time. So this is definitely one sign of anxiety too. If you're feeling tired but wired at the same time, you want to sleep, you want to rest, you're just not able to. And also if you have chronic pain. So if you have chronically something going on, uh, you've been maybe getting checked several times and they don't find anything, then this is pretty common too, that this is just your anxiety coming out this way, causing you back pain or persistent headaches or persistent like GI issues. It happens a lot. It's actually just your anxiety expressing it this way because you are not expressing it emotionally. So speaking of emotions, moving on, there are 6 basic emotions that are determined by psychologist Paul Ekman in the 1970s. And she identified 6 basic emotions that he said everybody experiences them, right? So across all human cultures, this is what we all experience. And I'm going to tell you in a second why I'm bringing emotions into this into this discussion today. So the 6 basic emotions are happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, and anger, right? And later, Ekman actually expanded this list and then added a couple of other ones, such as pride, shame, embarrassment, and excitement. So these are in these psychologists by his what would I say a way of the definition, right, is that we have 6 basic core emotions. And when you look at the ones that were mentioned, the 6 ones, happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, and anger, anxiety is actually fear, right? It's the same thing as fear. When you think about what kind of body reactions you get, right? It's the heart palpitations, like the muscle tension. You wanna run away, right? This is totally feels like fear, right? So you feel scared, you feel even terrified, and you get the same bodily sensation as if you were in actual danger, right? So think about it. If you are in actual dangerous situation, this is exactly what your body does. Let's get ready to move. Let's get in action. Let's get the muscles ready to go. Let's increase the blood pressure. Let's get the heart pumping, right? So these are so that you can run and get out of that fearful, scary situation. But this is actually also the same thing when we have anxiety, which is not a real fear, right? So the sensations are exactly the same, but there's no actual danger. That's the difference here. So anxiety is perceived fear. Your nervous system is on high alert for some reason, even though there is no actual physical threat to you, right? So people who are chronically anxious, they have high levels of stress in their bodies and high levels of stress hormones, including cortisol and adrenaline, which is something that I have talked about actually a lot when it comes to weight loss too and fat loss. They, people who experience this, they are always on high alert, always very busy, always, the brain is perceiving as if they're constantly in danger. They have higher levels of cortisol. And that's why the weight loss and fat loss might be more difficult. So I did an episode on that topic specifically. It was number 294, I think. So you can check that out. So you got to find ways how to deal with anxiety and take yourself out of this constant stress mode. There are some things that you can do with your lifestyle, obviously, right? So if you have so many things to do, you keep putting things on your list, you keep doing these really like very intense workouts, and like you're making your life very stressful. This is one of the things why your body may perceive that, okay, we have a lot of danger and we have to send you a lot of, or make a lot of cortisol and adrenaline. So that can actually keep you stuck in your weight loss too. But of course, today we're going to talk a little bit more about the mindset tools, right? How can you deal with your anxiety this way? So we're not talking so much about the lifestyle stuff, which is covered in this other episode that I talked about. So fear, of course, coming back to fear is a really powerful emotion that can also play an important role in survival. So if you face some sort of real threat, like I said, it's a good thing to feel that fear. It's a good thing that you now get cortisol and adrenaline, because these things mobilize you. They get you going, though, so you don't sit there and get eaten by a lion, right? So that's why we have this response in our system. This is actually for our survival. So you can get out of that dangerous situation. But like I mentioned, anxiety is a perceived fear. So perceived fear can come from our thoughts alone, and literally the effect on the body is the same, right? So what are those fearful thoughts that are causing the same response, fight or flight response? These thoughts can be catastrophizing, and the endless what if scenarios that run through your head all the time. What might happen? So if you have a lot of these thoughts, then there's a good chance that you're living in a high anxiety state. You're always thinking about what is going to happen in the future. You're not really in the present moment, and you are already thinking all the most awful, horrible scenarios that are going to happen. So people who tend to do that, who believe that everything's going to turn out badly, or things are going to go wrong, or they're always preparing for the worst, these people are just experiencing a lot of anxiety, right? With their thoughts alone. But the thing is that the thoughts are just thoughts, right? And they cannot harm you the way that, a lion could harm us, or, somebody like some kind of bad person on the street must do something to us. Thoughts actually shouldn't have that power, right? But interestingly, our response is still the same, right? Like I mentioned already a couple of times before. So, what do you do then when you get this sensation of intense anxiety, right? It's just like washing over you. Feel like I have these shaky hands and my heart is racing like crazy and my mind just cannot slow down and I'm sweating and I don't know, I'm going to just jump out of my pants. It's just so crazy. So, if you've had this experience, then there is a way to deal with that. And it's not oftentimes what most people think it is. So, first, I want to say what are the things that you shouldn't be doing that are not helpful? So, the first thing is don't add fuel to the fire and keep adding more of those worrisome thoughts, right? You're keeping yourself in the loop. Like, okay, but if this happens, and then what if that happens, and then the third thing, and then the fourth thing. So you just keep adding fuel to the fire and just can't step out of it, right? So that's one of the things, like creating more of these terrible scenarios of all of the things that might happen. So, right. So if you do that, you're actually amplifying the anxiety. The other thing is to try to completely ignore it. And this is what I personally did. I tried to, I just ignored it. Honestly, I didn't even recognize it. I didn't know for the longest time that this is anxiety. And so I didn't know that I should be doing anything with it. So I noticed, of course, I noticed that I have heart palpitations and super racing thoughts and these jitters, this very uncomfortable feeling. But I just moved on to the next thing. I never knew to acknowledge it and to look at it. I just did the next thing. And then I was like, then it came back. Sometimes when you start doing something else to distract yourself, then after a long time, the anxiety will slow down and start feeling a little bit more normal again, but it comes back. It always comes back. And I think it comes back until you start actually looking at it. So you can't ignore it. If you get these signs that I mentioned, the physical signs and sensations, this is anxiety. You actually have to look at it. You can't be like, okay, whatever, moving on to the next thing, which is what I did for a long time, like I said. And the other thing that I don't recommend you do is to use a coping mechanism that is an unhealthy one, right? So, for example, something that gives you that quick dopamine hit. So for me, it used to be like, let's go check the phone, right? This is so uncomfortable. I'm going to just check the phone and see what's new on, I don't know, social media or something like that, right? It can look like different, for a lot of other people. They can be like, I'm going to go get some food. I'm going to drink wine. I'm going to, I don't know, do something that actually doesn't address this anxiety. And they just find something that gives them this feel good sensation for a minute. But at the end of it, when this feel good dopamine hit wears off, they feel worse because this was just a bad idea, like bad distraction. So you can't really do that and get better from anxiety. And one more thing, actually, that I want to add here, what not to do is trying to figure out exactly what caused it. Sometimes you just cannot know. Sometimes it is obvious, right? Maybe you have to have a hard conversation with somebody. Okay, then we know. But anxiety can also totally come from the subconscious, so that you have no idea why this sensation suddenly hit you. And again, I'm very familiar with that. In this case, you don't have to think, was it this? Was it that? Should I not do this next time? Oh my God, then you go into this worry loop again, trying to figure things out. Sometimes just let it be. Let it be like, okay, it's here now, and I don't know why. I just don't know why. You can't know everything. And I think this might be very difficult for those of you who maybe have a little bit more um, control, need to be in control, right? In control, you have to like know everything and control everything. And now you all of a sudden you don't know why this happened. It can be super hard, but just sometimes that is the case, and you got to be okay with it. It doesn't give you anything to figure out, like spend hours on like what caused this. And that actually may cause you to come up with like more terrible scenarios, and you may stop, like reduce the things you do in your life just because you're so afraid that that will bring the anxiety back again. So you just like don't get so analytical about it. Sometimes it's really just like allowing, okay, it is what it is right now. Now the important thing is, what do I then do about it? So let's get to that part. So I mentioned what not to do. These things were, don't add fuel to the fire by continuing, worrying more, adding more worry. Don't ignore it. Don't use a coping mechanism, and don't try to figure out necessarily what it was. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't know. So now let's talk about what to do then. And this is where it might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but actually what helps the most is to letting it in and inviting it in. So all the unpleasant sensations in your body that you are feeling like, this is awful, I want to run away from this, I can't sit still. Actually what you got to do is just be with it and let it be and allow it to be the way it wants to be, and just tolerate this stuff, right? And it is really hard. It is easier in the moment to go check Facebook or whatever, right? Because it give you this short escape, but it doesn't save you. So what actually does, when you sit with it and you let it be and you experience it fully, right? That's what they say when they say, feel your feelings. Just experience it as deeply as you can. It can't hurt you. There's nothing physical, right? Like I said, there's no lion, there's no like robbery happening. The lion's not going to eat you, nothing like that. So there's no real danger that you have to run away from. So you don't. So you just are there with these anxiety symptoms and just experience them. Nicole Sachs, who is somebody who works with chronic pain people, and she uses mind body approach to these things. She says, invite it in. Say, hey, come on in, sit down, let's hang out together. Right? That's kind of like the attitude you want to have. Welcome it, because it's not dangerous, it's not harmful, can't do anything bad to you, actually. And when you let it in, when you let it do what it wants, it actually becomes powerless, right? It cannot harm you if you are welcome to it, if you are welcome in it and you're letting it in, and you're like, okay, whatever, you're here, fine, let's do this, right? So allow it, let it in, and just tolerate, learn to tolerate it, because this is how you also build up your stress tolerance in general. You learn that it wasn't that horrible. Even the first time was really horrible, next time is going to be less horrible. And then this is how you actually build up resilience and strength in you too. Now I want to give you an example of how that might look like. So let's say that you have to send somebody a difficult text message, right? And you know it's going to be hard. The other person might not like it. And this is where you also have to check, okay, am I a people pleaser? Am I way too worried about other people's opinions? Because when you are going to write something that the other person might not like, you're probably already internally a little bit scared, because you're like, oh my God, how is she going to respond? What is she going to say? Right? But you know that you have to send the message. This is important for you. Maybe you're setting your boundaries or whatever. So then you type the message and then you send it, and then you feel really awful, probably because the anxiety is going to hit you. So this is one of these cases where you know that, okay, this was the reason. And so now just fully let this just wash over you. Just come on in, all right, do what you want. And just sit there with all the feelings. And again, it might feel like, oh my God, my heart is going so fast, my hands are shaking, my mind is racing with what if thoughts. And just don't add any more what if thoughts, but just watch this experience and just fully feel it. And this is how it starts to get less and less. So first time it can take you, 20 minutes or 30 minutes, but don't distract yourself. Just be with it, still be with it. Like, don't like, oh, let me go for a walk, let me run it out. Or no, just be there and let it do what it wants to do. And that actually takes the power away from anxiety, because you're showing it that you're not afraid of it. Now, some other tips for your just like overall lifestyle. What I just shared was more like, okay, what to do in the moment when these really uncomfortable feelings hit, but also like for your overall lifestyle, what can you do in your everyday life? So try to reframe your thoughts. So if you have a lot of like terrifying thoughts or like scary and what if, then every time you notice it, and first you have to start noticing it, but then when you start noticing it, you want to just reframe it and also calm yourself down. I found very helpful to just say whatever, right? Just like a take an inhale, exhale, whatever, right? And just literally, I've done that so many times. This is a practice that I have. I just let it be whatever, because not everything is actually important. Not everything, I mean, hardly anything is worth catastrophizing. But I understand that automatically your brain might go there. So you have to catch it and then let yourself calm down and say whatever, or it's okay, or it's going to be fine, something like this. The other thing I really encourage you to do is starting to see things from a different perspective. So if you have a strong negativity bias, then just start looking the same situation that right now looks really negative from a different angle, and start to see where how can I see it in a more positive way. What is the other angle here that I can look at it from that makes it a little bit lighter, makes it easier. And I know these two, it can be hard because you might be feeling like, but this is a lie, this is not real, am I trying to lie to myself by looking at it from the positive angle? But no, it's actually helping you to find this like lighter, better perspective, and your mind won't go into negative as often the more you practice it. Just literally see the same situation, like everything's your perspective, right? That's why two people can see the same situation totally differently. One thinks it's the end of the world, the other thinks, oh, there's an opportunity, right? So I want you to look at it more in the way of there is an opportunity, right? From that perspective. The next thing, just for overall lifestyle, if you're experiencing a lot of anxiety, is to get more assertive, become more assertive person. So one of the things, the emotions, is like fear of what will others think, what will others do. I don't want to set any boundaries because other people won't like it, right? But you have to challenge yourself this way. So you have to set boundaries. You have to get assertive if somebody doesn't respect you or does something that is not good for you and you feel like, okay, this was unfair, this wasn't good. Don't just take it. You have to become more like, okay, these are my boundaries and I'm standing up for myself. And then when you do this more and more, you will at first run into these anxiety producing situations more because, like I said, maybe you have to send somebody that text that, hey, this is not okay. We can't continue this way. Or maybe you have to have a hard conversation with somebody, but you get stronger the more you do it. And then when you do it, you get the anxiety response, and then you just are with it, right? Just be with it. Instead of saying, setting boundaries is so hard, I'm going to hurt somebody, it's going to feel uncomfortable, I'm going to get all this anxiety. I'm not going to send any boundaries at all. I'm not going to stand up for myself at all. So if you do that, you actually just become inside very resentful and absolutely not happy with yourself, and your anxiety keeps coming back and likely getting stronger. So you have to become a more assertive and strong person if you're not that way at the moment, even if it is hard at first. Later it's going to feel a lot better. The next tip that I have for overall lifestyle, if you are experiencing a lot of anxiety, is definitely this: create more space for feeling your feelings. Okay, so you actually need like time in your day where you can just be, right? I know not everybody's, most people's schedules are full, like packed with all kinds of crap that feels so important in a moment. Oh my God, if I don't do this, the world's going to end. But what happens if you don't take any time for yourself and experiencing what you're experiencing, or asking yourself questions, going a little bit deeper? What happens then? You're probably going to have more repressed emotions and more anxiety too, because it has to come out some way. So I really recommend that you find a little bit of time every day. And ideally, you would take this time a couple of times during the day or even more, just to reflect a little bit, just to rest, just to chill, not to think about too many things, and just be. That would be a really ideal thing to do. The next thing, create just some more quiet time and less time on social media. Social media is a big distractor, and the speed at which the world is moving and the posts and everybody. I think it's not difficult to see how that also adds to our anxiety for sure. And just let your nerves rest, breathe and relax. Just create more space, turn off the phone on the weekend if you can. And also, when you tend to have like health anxiety, then definitely stop reading so many things about like health and all these posts that people are sharing and catastrophizing and scaring you with all the potential things that could go wrong with your health. This is a big cause of health anxiety. Absolutely, get away from it. It's if you if you have a problem, of course, then you need to address this. But just to feed your brain constantly with like all the what ifs, like, oh my god, but I haven't checked this, but I haven't checked that. Oh my goodness, what's this is going to add a lot more anxiety, and you're not going to feel well. Even if it comes from a good place, you want to take care of your health. But if you're obsessively researching everything, you're not going to do yourself a favor. And what I always recommend with, whatever your goals are, if there's an account on social media that doesn't help you to achieve that, then please go and unfollow, right? And, I've actually done several times the same thing myself. Even if this person, I like their content, it's really good, they're really smart, but they're talking about so many different things that gets my head spinning and thinking like, oh my God, I have to do that too. Now I have to do this and then I have to do that. And, where does the relaxation part come in? Because you're so preoccupied with doing all the things, checking all the things on the list, on the health list, right? So it can't be like this all the time. So creating more space for just being instead of like researching, doing stuff, being involved in everything. These can also be very anxiety producing, especially if you tend to be a little bit more sensitive person. So take good care of yourself. I want to finish with one of the books that I would like you to check out if this topic is important to you. And it is Self Help for Your Nerves. Learn to relax and enjoy life again by overcoming stress and fear. And this is written by Claire Weeks. It is an older book, and it's kind of sweet, right? It's definitely not like heavy sciencey thing. It's not like that. It's light and sweet but deep at the same time, and it just again it actually is quite similar to like the approach is quite similar to what I told you about today too. Just like letting it be, getting through this with ease and lightness as much as possible by allowing the difficult feelings and anxiety to be there. This is actually the way you're going to start feeling better. So check out this book once again. This is Self-Help for Your Nerves. Learn to relax and enjoy life again by overcoming stress and fear by Claire Weeks. Okay, I hope you liked today's episode. Let me know if you did, and if you have any more topic requests, I am super happy to take them. So thank you so much, and I'll see you again in the next episode. Take care.